Many of you have probably heard that the subconscious mind is processing, anywhere from 2 million to 12 million bits of information every moment, and the conscious mind is able to process about 120 bits of information. So you guys know the word bits from like the computer world, right? So 120 bits of information is the processing power that it would take to communicate in two conversations at once. So a conversation is about 60 bits of processing power that our brain needs. And if you think about it, if you were having a conversation with person A and person B, two separate conversations, that would pretty much max out your conscious ability to do things, right? That would be your max. Imagine having three conversations. You're talking to your dad about where you're going to eat lunch, and you're talking to your student friend who like what they did last night. If you're having these two conversations at one time, adding a third conversation would be pretty much impossible for most humans. Also, noticing the bird flying around above you or to the left of you and what it sounds like would also be I'll just say difficult for us to process. However, it is being processed. It definitely is being processed by, I'm not clear if it's the brain or, I'll just say it's the brain. Or if there's something else channeling through us that knows all, which is the whole point of this. But it is being processed, right? At every single moment, we're processing millions of bits of information, and like it's transmitting to our body, giving it signals, right? We know if we're standing, right? And so there's a part of us that is calculating and processing the ability to balance and stand, even though we're not consciously aware of that. However, if I'm not in two conversations right now and I have that 120 bits of information available for me to use bandwidth to focus on the balancing muscles of my body, which are always constantly rebalancing, right? We're never in balance. It's always a constant rebalance. Then I can bring my conscious awareness to that. So we are subconsciously or unconsciously aware of millions of bits of information. We're consciously aware of 120 bits. Okay, now, with all that said, what was the whole point of that? Now I need to bring my consciousness back to why I started talking about it, because it was really interesting. That was just a preface to talk about why is it only 120 bits. There we go. We learn to narrow our focus down. We learn to build a channel that is about 120 bits of information. This is a learned task that humans learn because when we're born, we have access to the fullness of what we're perceiving. If we're an infant in this forest right here, there's kind of a pathway here. I'm consciously making a decision to walk on that, and then I actually, the subconscious takes over to do the walking. But if I see these trees and I'm recognizing that they're not important because I'm a 38-year-old human and I'm just like, I'm walking back this way. I don't need to pay attention to all this stuff. However, there is a part of me that is paying attention to it all, right? And then there's these gates. So all of our senses are bringing information into our brain, and there's several processes that happen, and during these processes your brain is deciding whether it's useful information to bring to my consciousness. And there's like 8 stages of when I hear something. If I hear a bird, there's like 8 stages where, like during this video, there's probably birds chirping. I didn't consciously hear it because at one of these stages, there was a gate that determined that this is not useful information for me to be consciously aware of. However, if one of these birds said my name, they said my name, those gates would open up and let that come to my awareness. And usually your name is, and I just use a weird example, but imagine you're at a party and there's a whole bunch of people talking. That all gets drowned out into your subconscious. It's all being processed, but not being consciously aware. As soon as somebody says your name, you're like, what the heck? I just heard my name, right? Through all of the chatter, your brain knows what to let go through to your consciousness and what to block out. This is very interesting because we learn this. This is a learned task operating system, if that even makes sense. So if it's learned, it can be recalibrated, and these gates can be opened, and we can flood ourselves, okay, which might not be useful in 21st century systematic society. However, it could be useful if you're looking for a change, because the language of nature it requires us to have different gating. It requires us to allow different things from our subconscious into our consciousness so that we can have different experiences. I'm going to continue this later because I'm not going to continue it. I just need to focus. See, there's too much stuff happening. My 120, my bandwidth is waning. Okay, so there's these things called windows of opportunity, and in psychology, this is one of the things that I remembered because I remembered it was cool. But there's these windows of opportunities that infants and toddlers and kids' brains have that if you don't grasp onto them, then you will never be able to learn them, so they say. So one of these windows of opportunity, you guys see this? You guys see all these sticks? How I have to count them is I have to count them individually. 1, 2, I have to bring one into my awareness, focus on it, that is 1. Another one into my awareness, that is 2. There's a window of opportunity, there's a stage in life where we can teach children how to count by just looking at in a section right here and being able to determine how many sticks are, long, how many sticks are short, how many sticks are really small. They can just analyze a frame and know without counting the individuals. There's these superhuman abilities that we have that if we don't utilize them, if they're not important out here, a task like that could be useful. But in the city, it's not that useful. So there's this window where this gate, this processing program is open for us to turn on. And if we don't, I forget the actual months of age where you would have to learn this or utilize it so that it sticks. But if you have that, then you have it for the rest of your life. So there's all of these things. There's all of these different gating programs that we have through life that allows us to focus and hone in that very important 120 bits of consciousness onto certain things. But I'm saying all this because I like to talk to people about being open to other perceptions. And I'm usually talking about that in terms of other people. So a good way to learn is to be open to people that have different perceptions than you. And then you can go through life with all of these lenses. A lot of these lenses contradict each other. So if you go through life trying to argue with people about why your sense of perception is better than their sense of perception, you never get to use their lens. As opposed to discussing with people about why and getting deeper into their communicating with people to understand them better so that you can then utilize their lens, their way of seeing the world. You can then have that. You attain it. It's like a video game. You talk to some person, you can either deny what they say and walk away as you were, or you can absorb what they say and walk away with literally their life experience as a lens that you can view life with. It's honestly a superpower, and it's very simple to do. You just listen to people, and you're interested in them. Whether, you're never going to agree with anyone. It's like everyone's perception is completely different because of these gates, because of our body's learned abilities to pay attention to certain things. If someone grew up in nature, someone grew up in the other side of the world, someone grew up in the city, somebody grew up in, someone was homeless, these are going to be different gating programs that allow certain different bits of information to go into that consciousness, and everyone's having a different life experience. So every single person you meet at every single level is going to be perceiving things different than you. Arguing about why you think your way of perceiving is better than theirs is, I guess that's another perception that I shouldn't negate. But anyways, moving on. There's a way that you can also utilize, not instead of just using lenses of perceptions from other people, you can use your own different lenses of perceptions to the point where you can try and open your gating channels to allow more information into your consciousness by just practicing. And you can do that with your senses. I did a practice of the day about a year ago where we closed our eyes and we listened to all the sounds, and we tried to pick up, and then we had a task. We had to mimic the sounds. And when you close your eyes, if you close your eyes right now and then try and pick out 5 sounds around you, even while you're listening to this video, you could probably pick out 5 sounds around you that you might not have been aware of before I asked you to become aware of it. And you can play with your body's ability to, and musicians are better at this because they work with sound, right? So people who work with sound and or are traumatized by sound, like PTSD, war vets, they're going to be able to pick up on things that are threatening to them. In that case, it's going to be like their gating channels are more open. So this is me rambling on a lot because I wasn't completely focused on making this video. I was walking through rocks, and now I'm driving. So this is going a little bit longer than I'd hoped. So if you're still listening, I'm going to still keep on talking. So there's ways for us to reprogram ourselves on this level. Imagine us having a bigger and brighter consciousness. So as we learn things, right? As we learn things, notice how you walk through life. And like if you were studying about flowers and you learn something about flowers, the next time you're walking through a field, it's no longer just a field of dandelions, right? It's not just dandelions that you think of as weeds, but you're like, oh wow, there's a different song of dandelions that you're experiencing. And what I'm saying, the point of this video is hone in on your ability to expand into your consciousness. Make a focused effort and intentional choice to expand your 120 bits, either what gets through to your 120 bits or the 120 bits itself. Allow yourself the ability to be distracted by everything. Okay? Because yes, it is important to hone in on one conversation and to hone in on one thing. We're very, very good at that. Most of us have decades of experience of doing that. And a lot of us owe a lot of the things in our life, the income we make, the friends we have, a lot of us owe a lot of the things in our life to our ability to focus in. But let's increase the information. Let's increase the information constantly. And it might be a little distracting at first if you walk through life and you're like, I'm going to pay attention to everything in my periphery. I'm going to pay attention to everything, every song. I'm going to start deciphering the colors of my reality. I'm going to go into nature and I'm going to notice the different greens that I see. I'm going to notice, it's a good time of year to do that. I'm going to notice what's living and what's dead. I'm going to notice the insects. I'm going to notice the things that you haven't noticed before. And as we practice opening up our lenses, our conscious ability to process will also open. Because as I said, even the 120-bit narrowed focus is normal in a civilized culture. And so when they study people, that's what they find. However, we have the ability to expand that because we have the potential to consciously, that's a reach. I should just say we have the ability to consciously process more than 120 bits. It's just we've learned that in this way of life, that's what's important, right? That's what keeps me alive. I need to forget the things that I'm driving by right now so that I can focus on not hitting a car on the road. And let's increase that. Let's all increase our ability to consciously process. Anyways, I think that's all. I hope this allows you to at least intend on opening up your conscious awareness, because this is what everyone talks about, right? Being woke, waking up to what we can do, the powerful human being. This is a way. Later, peoples.